Welcome to Commander Central, episode 174, and today is part one of the epic Theros review crossover show featuring creatures from Theros Beyond Death. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
I'm Chris.
I'm Brando.
Hey, Brando.
What's up, Brando?
How's it going?
It's going really well. How's it going with you guys?
Pretty good.
I was expecting more of a hero's welcome,
Oh,
but I guess
okay,
I'll
all right.
take that too.
We just we're going to roll you in with the cast. Well, you figured it out after a few seconds. You got there.
Hey man, I'm not a professional at this for nothing. I do this for a living, you know.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for joining us. How's it going?
It's going really well. Thanks for having me. It's a super cold day. I had to walk back to work for you guys. It's minus 40 degrees right now.
Is it really?
Well, that's
Yeah, it's
Celsius,
actually minus
so
40 degrees in the
do a
wind.
conversion here.
That's insane.
It's-
Okay, that's true. Celsius, that's worse, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's way worse.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
In America temperature, it's probably like 0 or minus 2. I think in Canada temperature, it's or is there a point where it gets so cold that it's actually just the same number? I think that might be a
Yeah,
thing
I think
too.
so. Either way, it sounds horrifying. I don't want to deal with it.
It's awful. It's been dark since like 5 o'clock, and it's minus 40 degrees. It's January in Canada.
Yeah, well, Wisconsin's not a whole heck of a lot better. So.
Yeah, it's just raining here, and then it's freezing, so all
Raining,
the roads are glare ice.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So why don't you introduce yourself, Brando, and let people know where they know you from in the Commander community?
Well, I'm Brando. I'm one half of Commander Cookout Podcast. You can find us anywhere better podcasts are found, or on CommanderCookout.com. I'm also a hell of a nice guy.
You are a nice guy.
Yeah, he is.
We just
Oh,
had
thanks,
your
guys.
sketchier half on here a week ago, so we're expecting great things from you because you did a pretty nice job.
Oh, I love how I'm the absolute evil one, but Ryan has the reputation of being the sketchy one.
Right.
Well, I mean, you're Rocky and he's Bullwinkle, I believe.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
that's how it goes, I think.
Yeah, little, tall, right? Yeah, that's how
Yep,
it works.
yep.
Yeah.
Well, we will also welcome Chris back to the show.
I don't know who you're talking about.
He has recovered from his near-death foot experience.
Yeah, and then for those of you listening in Slack, you might see in the post, Max threatened to push me down the stairs, so I broke my other foot.
I got to be a scumbag somehow.
Well, having you injured, Chris, has gotten us a bunch of good guests.
I'm sure it has.
So it's worked out in our favor. So your contributions are valuable even when you're not here.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just sitting there all, taking pain meds and sleeping for like 4 hours, wake up for an hour and like, where am I? And then go back to sleep. And
You did get high praise from the deck tech where you were literally upstairs sending me, like,
Yes,
talk about this
yes.
card, talk about this card. So you were here in
yeah,
spirit.
because
that
I
one.
couldn't physically come down the stairs.
Well, if you're wondering why Brando is joining us as well, even though Chris is also here, not that Brando isn't a delightful person to have on,
Thank you.
but the reason you're hanging out here is because every time a new set comes out, there are so many cool cards, it's tough to get them all in one show. So what we're doing in honor of Theros Beyond Death is we're doing an epic Odyssey crossover of our own in honor of the Greek and Roman mythology that makes up Theros. So here on Commander Central and on Brando's show Commander Cookout, on Commander Social featuring a couple of guests we had on recently, Ryan and Zach, and on the EDH Recast featuring guests we had on here recently, Matt Morgan, we are all doing a 4-part preview show with each show taking a different group of cards and featuring one person from another show as a guest. So this is the Monday show that will be airing, and Brando is going to hang out here, and we're going to talk about the non-legendary creatures.
In part 2, we're going to do the instants and the sorceries and the planeswalkers.
And I think that'll be on the CCO show on Tuesday, right?
Correct. We usually release around 9 a.m. The show has been recorded already through the magic of radio, and let me tell you, they're not as exciting as the creatures.
Oh, no. And I believe you guys had Zach from Commander Social on, correct?
We sure did. It was a great time. He's like a medium guy. He's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
about the right hot take there. Then on Wednesday on Commander Social, they'll be discussing the most interesting artifacts, enchantments, and lands with Dana's other show's co-host, Matt Morgan from EDH Recast.
Interesting. So I wonder what else is going to happen. Oh, wait, we're coming to the Friday and the grand finale, where Joey Schultz from EDH Rec Podcast will be joined by Ryan Green from Commander Social, Ryan Peneff from Commander Cookout, and our very own Max Crandall, scumbag impersonator number 1, to discuss the new legendary creatures.
All right, so 4-part crossover show among 4 different podcasts to take on the mouthful that is Theros, because there's a lot of stuff here. But before we jump into that, we'll do the usual games we played segment here quickly and discuss anything fun that happened in games. Brando, did you play any fun games this week where anything interesting happened worth talking about?
Yes, well, sort of. I rebuilt. I have a blue-red deck that is a pet project of mine where I just take all of the Is-It cards I like and just jam them all into one deck and hope that it works. And recently on the CCO, we were talking about 7 dwarves and how we could use them in a clone kind of shell to make more 7 dwarves and then hammer faces with them.
Nice.
So in the game, I'd been left alone because my deck was doing all except play this 1 7 dwarf. And I got up to like 10 mana and I kicked a Rite of Replication onto it. And I played a Brutaclad, and I got a bunch of gold tokens, and then I had 11 7 dwarves. Totally won that game.
Nice.
Like,
Wow.
so
Cool. That's actually a really great use of 7 dwarves. I like that a lot.
it's the only run through that the deck has had. Like, it's the only game it's ever played, and it worked to a T, so I feel like I might just take it apart so I can retire it undefeated.
Go out on top. I can
Exactly.
respect that. I fired up my new deck this week. I played my Kenrith Exalted deck, and that was pretty fun. Exalted creature, so I'm kind of limited to how much you can do when you're playing 5-color Exalted, but I enjoyed the deck, and it's going to give me something a little bit lower power to play, like at Magic Fest, that kind of thing, with people I don't know or people that are playing low power decks. So I think I'm going to keep it for that purpose. But the one cool thing that did happen to me was I was playing my Glissa deck for the last game of the night, and I opened with an Ancient Tomb because I had it in my hand. Then I top decked a Soul Ring on turn 2. So I dropped a land, played a Soul Ring, and then I had 4 mana to play Vidalcan Ori. So turn 2, Vidalcan Ori in play. Pass a turn. Came back turn 3. Turn 3, I dropped my land and passed a turn, didn't play anything, and went around the board. And before it came back to me, I dropped a Memory Jar. Then came to my turn, because it's a good time for Memory Jar at that point. Once I crack it, I can refill my hand, do stuff on my turn with all the mana I have. And it got plagiarized, which is the sorcery version of Notion Thief.
Oh, no.
So the guy who plagiarized it drew 14 with no mana free because it was turn 3. So he got to draw 14. I drew no cards out the Memory Jar, and then that was it. So I basically time walked myself with the Memory Jar on my turn. And
Wow.
I totally deserved it and spent 5 minutes laughing about it. It was pretty great.
I'm super happy I know that happened.
Yeah. So how about you, Max? You played a few. So did Chris. Chris played some games too this week.
Of course I did.
Yeah, I got to play a couple games with Chris. I ruled through the skies with Dramoka and my army of angels, which all had 7+1/+1 counters on them from
Oof.
Archangel Athune.
Nice.
I don't even remember what I was playing in that game. All I know is it was not working out well.
Were you playing Anamatu?
No, I think I was playing Alesha.
Oh, you were playing Alesha. You got hosed. Oh, that's right, because then you showed me the damnation that after I
Yes.
killed you.
Yep. Because I figured he'd split his attacks, but no, he's just like, kill
I'm
you.
taking
And I'm
out
like,
Chris.
ah.
How are your games, Chris?
Mine were pretty good. I ended up playing your Jeru deck
You did.
for the last game of the night.
Like an all Super Friends game, wasn't
Yes, they were like all 4 of us were playing Super Friends decks of some
Oh.
sort.
That sounds like my hell.
Oh, it was not fun. It was like a 5-hour game. But I did manage to set up with a Divine Visitation, which is a 5-mana enchantment. I think it's the one
Yep.
where
Makes the angels.
makes the angels. Had an Elspeth Sun's Champion and a Sarah the Benevolent out.
it?
Well, then one player decided to ultimate his Amanatu. And I was like, okay, in response to your activation of it, I'm at Teferi's Protection.
So everyone else just swaps stuff out, and you're like, nope.
I get the person to the left or to
Yep.
the direction.
Oh, and they didn't get your stuff. Oh,
And the other person got nothing. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah. And then they all turned on me.
Similar to when you played Blood Moon earlier in the night.
Yes. Oh, that was a good play. Don't even get it wrong.
Oh, no, I agree with that.
Got multiple people playing, 2 people playing 5-color decks. One guy's playing a 2-color deck. I'm like, oh, this seems like a good demonic tutor target. Blood Moon, play it.
That does put a bullseye on your back, though, for sure.
It does.
Okay, well, if you would like to find us and tell us about any crazy games you played or how you'd like to plagiarize my wonderful memory jar, how'd you do that,
Apparently
Chris?
you're traumatized
I guess I'm
by it.
traumatized by the plagiarize.
Well, you can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can search us up on Facebook, CMDR Central. Find us on YouTube by searching CMDR Central, and find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also find us on patreon.com by searching CMDR Central, and we have 3 new patrons to say thank you to. So we want to say thank you to Miles Mendoza. Sorry for butchering that. Matthew Bowen and Josh Edwards.
The last 2 you're probably safe on.
I really hope so.
And I think in Mendoza you probably got right.
Yeah.
So
Has anyone ever called you out on butchering their name yet?
Some people, usually they're like, you tried really hard.
You did a nice attempt. So
Yeah.
we appreciate it. You can also find us on flipsidegaming.com.
Yeah, head over there and use promo code CMDR in all caps to get 10% off all orders, $10 or more.
I think we have a couple of contests starting off here as well.
Kicking off. So with Theros Beyond Death coming out, we're giving away more packs of product.
All right.
Twitter is going to get 3 packs of Theros, and 1 lucky patron supporter will get a Theros Beyond Death bundle.
Nice. Well, speaking of contests, I'm surprised Max hasn't been jumping to mention this. We had a T-shirt contest that ran here for a few months to see who would sell more T-shirts through Teespring, Chris or Max.
Yeah.
Where the loser takes a pie to the face. And we're going to put that in video and put it out there. So how did that wind up working out, gentlemen?
Scumbags always win, apparently.
You know it.
Max wins the contest.
By a handful.
So Chris wins the pie.
Just so you all know, when you see this video, you're going to see me just like pity party. Like, I break my foot and I come back to this. None of you guys love me. All this stuff.
Well, we'll record that at some point, probably here in the next several weeks. And
Yep.
we'll get it out there on YouTube so people can see Chris get the pie to the face.
What kind of pie is going to be?
I don't know.
Is it going to be hot, like fresh out of the oven, like pie to the face? Like, how serious is this?
It's just a food token, really.
Right, yeah. Chris will become the food token afterwards. Like a piping hot cherry pie out of the oven.
The syrup just like crystallizes on your skin.
Chris gets scalded.
Don't worry, it's going to get all over me. The first thing I'm going to do is stand up and be like, Dana, give me a big hug.
I think you don't want to waste a good pie.
No.
Like if you have a really good pie, I think you just want to eat the pie. So I think you have to use like one of the cheesy whipped cream kind of pies.
That's what I think is probably the easiest to do. Less of a mess would be just
Yeah.
a regular like a graham cracker crust pie, and then just take a can of whipped cream and
There
just
we
spray
go.
it
Fill
in
it
there.
in.
We'll figure it out. We'll take suggestions.
That's not a good thing. Someone's going to be like, oh, you should just make like a pot pie or something.
KFC.
Just gravy everywhere.
Mm.
All right, so we'll announce more with that as it gets a bit closer. But yeah, Max won the contest, so we will be filming Chris taking a pie to the face here in the fairly near future.
I am building an army of scumbags.
I think the army was already out there. They've just found their commander.
Their leader.
Okay, guys, let's dive into the main show topic here because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to look at the non-legendary creatures from Theros Beyond. And there is a lot of really good ones here. First of all, what are your thoughts on the set? Just because it's almost entirely spoiled at this point. Brando, what are you thinking, having seen what we've seen so far?
I think that there's a vastly swinging power level in here where the cards are either really, really good. I'm looking at some of the legendaries that you're going to hear about on Friday, and some of the cards just seem kind of blah, to be honest with you. Like a lot of the stuff we talked about yesterday was okay, but nothing that really got you really excited. So I don't know. I think this set's a little medium, to be honest.
Okay, I think it seems really strong, at least from the point of view of the legendary stuff and the creatures that are in it. Whether or not that carries over to other formats, I'm not sure if there's much here for other formats, but it seems like there's a lot of Commander stuff here for sure. What do you think,
they're
Max?
they're just going for us or what?
I feel like it, yeah.
I'm okay with that.
And I'm okay with that too, but it definitely feels Commander focused. Chris, do you have any thoughts here?
It's Theros. Reminds me of the other Theros, honestly.
Yeah. I think I like this set more than the previous Theros, I think for sure.
It definitely makes me wonder if this set is meant to join up with the other sets that are coming out. Because when rotation happens, I do believe Theros will stay, and the other sets are going to rotate out before it.
Mm.
I'm not sure, but yeah, that could be. There's definitely a crazy amount of legendary creatures in here.
Yeah, there's, I think, like over 20.
Over 20, yeah. And I wonder if that isn't going to kind of be a normal thing now moving forward, because we had quite a few in Eldraine as well. So I feel like this might be the new normal where we just get a ton of legends and sets.
And we'll just see if they ban everything like they do all the time
Right.
anyways in the other formats. So,
All right, so let's look at the very first one here on our list. I will start us off with the Acolyte of Affliction. It's 2 black and green for a human cleric. When Acolyte of Affliction enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, and you may then return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So you have a kind of slightly neutered Eternal Witness for 1 more mana in Golgari colors. I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward. If you're playing like a Marin or a Carador or Muldrotha, it might give you 1 more option in a creature body that you can use to recur stuff. Is it quite good enough to make the cut in those decks, do you guys think?
I think it might be. There was a card very similar to it in one of the recent Ravnica sets that does just the second half it returns a card. It doesn't mill yourself. And that sees play in those decks, so I think this is just a better card just because it's easier to cast. And you're fueling your graveyard. You're fueling your resource.
The fueling the graveyard is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it maybe a little more relevant in Standard as well, I think. Yeah, I
we
like it.
shall see.
I don't think it sees play outside of those kind of decks. So, like, I think if you just want it as a value recursion piece in a normal deck that isn't going to be doing abusive stuff like a Carador deck does or a Marin deck does, I don't know if it's good enough. But
Well, that stupid Hydra that your roommate plays, that could work in that deck too.
Gyrus,
yep.
yeah, that
Yep.
makes sense there.
It has a bigger butt than an Eternal Witness. That's
true.
something.
That's
Right?
for sure.
Although that can be a bit of a downside too. One thing nice about a Witness is you can clamp it easily, and this is tougher to clamp. But usually those decks have a bunch of sack outlets, so it winds up being kind of a non-issue.
Yeah.
All right, what's next here, Brando?
All right, the next card is Archon of Justice. It is a 3/4 for white 2. Flying lifelink. Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink, and it has Constellation. So whenever another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. It's a wall of text.
That's pretty gross in an Enchantress deck, I think.
Or a life gain deck that probably has enchantments in it.
Or a flying, maybe
Tribal
Dragon Lord
deck.
Dramokus deck where you run a bunch of enchantments as ways to win games.
Yep.
Is it going to go in there?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure
Does Stormherd make Pegasus?
Stormherd makes Pegasus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked it up the other day, actually. There's like, I forgot the stats now. There's like 12 Pegasuses in the game, and I think 3 or 4 other cards that aren't creatures that make Pegasus. There's like a land enchantment that makes a Pegasus, and there's a regular enchantment, and there's Stormherd. So there is probably someone with a Pegasus tribal deck out there that is really excited for this, but
That is just
It's a
begging
really
for this, eh?
I mean, it's a really solid card.
It's
I
not too
see.
bad. I mean, it makes bodies. It rewards you for doing what you're probably doing anyway in the deck that it shows up in, and it can gain you some life, and it gives you really good blockers. So
I mean, there's already is it a Johnny's Pride Mate that makes a 2/2 Cat Warriors when you play an enchantment?
No, that's
Johnny's
Pride
Chosen.
Mate gives
Johnny's
you,
Chosen. I think
like
it's,
lifelink, you can put a +1/+1 counter on them.
I think it's a Johnny's Chosen that does it. So there's a Johnny's card that's the same casting cost and makes 2/2 cats. This does the same thing on a flying lifelink body that's bigger that also makes 2/2 flyers instead of cats that have lifelink. I mean, like this is just a strict upgrade to that if you're playing it already, and I think if you're playing an Enchantress deck, this is pretty tempting. Is it going to go in your Tuvasa deck, Max?
It's on the list.
Along with 14 other cards you need to find room for?
Yes. The set
Yeah.
is giving me anxiety with that deck.
Seriously, the list for Sigarda deck is
At
ridiculously
least
long.
you only have 2 colors to work with.
That's true.
Actually,
I
you never
thought that
play the deck anyways. So.
I've been playing it in recent weeks again, so
Okay.
I've brought it back a little bit. But I've thought that a few times in the set when like I see some new enchantment thing with blue in it, I'm like, well, it's not my problem. That's somebody else's problem.
Hi, it's my problem.
Next, Max, we've got Blood Aspirant.
Yeah, Blood Aspirant is 1 in a red for a creature Satyr Berserker. It's a 1/1 body. It has whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Aspirant, and then for 1 in a red and tap, sacrifice a creature or enchantment, and Blood Aspirant deals 1 damage to target creature. That creature can't block this turn.
So the most important thing to note here probably is it might well be Blood Aspirant, and I've got somebody yelling into at their speaker right now because I said it wrong. So that might be on me. I'm not sure.
yeah,
We'll
those
see.
people can just relax. All right.
Yeah.
Like Necropotence,
Necropotence or
Necropotence,
Necropotence.
whatever it is.
Yeah. I routinely get chastised for that mistake. So,
Ooh.
So this one's pretty straightforward, I think. If you're playing a deck that sacrifices a bunch of stuff, this could be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It could be okay just for the secondary ability, too, if you're playing a bunch of tokens to be able to go sack creature, make that big guy can't block, and then swing through type of deal.
I wish it wasn't a tap ability and more just like a 2 in a red.
Without having to tap.
Without having to tap it. Because then you could do it more than once.
Sure, and then you can also...
You know, it's a multiplayer format. Clear out a bunch of blockers.
Sure, well, and you could...
You never split your attacks. You just nuke someone out.
Sure.
Well, then you have the option, too, to attack with it when it's got all swole, and also let your big thing get through.
Yeah, this really feels like you have to choose to do one or the other.
Yeah. I would guess Korvald is all over this. I would guess maybe Prosh. Because it does say, whenever you sacrifice a permanent, so it doesn't care about what the permanent is. And a lot of those Korvald decks are running
everything.
17 fetch lands and things like that just to get the sack triggers. I don't know if any other decks really care about it, though. Maybe like that new Satyr tribal thing, I guess, maybe, because it makes tokens, I believe. No, it doesn't. It doesn't even do that, so I don't know. But I think it'll be in decks.
I hope someone brings a Satyr tribal deck to the table and be like, meh.
All right, Chris, what's next?
We have Fleecemane Lion. I mean, Bronzehide Lion.
Very much a callback to Fleecemane Lion.
Definitely. Which is 1 green, 1 white for a 3/3 cat. For a green and a white, Bronzehide Lion gains indestructible until end of turn. When Bronzehide Lion dies, return it to the battlefield. It's an aura enchantment with enchant creature you control, and green and a white. Enchanted creature gains indestructible until end of turn, and it loses all other abilities. Here's a question for you. The green and the white gives it indestructible, but then takes all the abilities away from it?
Yes.
All other abilities.
Yep. Except
it's
for
still your aura?
Yes, I would assume so, yeah. And you can't put it on someone else's creature. So you can't use it defensively to like hit their Avacyn and take away her indestructible.
I still see ways of cheating this onto someone else's creature. Here, you can have this.
It seems like a lot of work to do it that way, but I think it's a fairly... I mean, like, I will put it in my kid's Arabo deck because I think it's probably good enough in Cat Tribal. Is there any place else anyone thinks that you would run it?
Pack one, pick one out of draft?
I mean, for sure, yeah. I mean, it's a useful card there.
This is going straight into my Arabo deck. It feeds into my theory that they're going to give us a solid cat in every set, just to prove that you can build a cat deck. They're just helpfully building the cat EDH for us.
They've been doing that every set, just like one random good creature. There was the one that draws you cards in Eldraine, that's name I forgot. There was that random cat lord we got in Modern Horizons. They've been just giving us like one deck for the one cat for those Arabo decks pretty consistently, yeah.
Yeah, and they're all green and white, and they're just going to keep doing that, and you're going to have a nice like 99 that you can just buy for cheap, and your kids can play it. I appreciate that, honestly. I think it's cool.
I agree, totally. All right, next up here we have a Destiny Spinner, 1 in a green for an enchantment creature human. Creatures and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. That is probably good enough for a 2/3 for 2 mana. Like I would play that if that's where the card ended, but it doesn't end there. 3 in a green, target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and has haste until end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments you control, and it's still a land. So it's kind of a win condition on its own. I mean, not necessarily a win condition, but like it lets you turn those enchantments into a beater land to punch somebody with.
It's gross.
I think either half of those cards is probably playable in an Enchantress deck. If I had the bottom half or the top half, having them both on one card for 2 mana on a 2/3, that's an enchantment creature, so it draws you a card when you cast it in most Enchantress decks. That's dumb. That's a dumb green card.
This card right here, Max, would lead me to want to play Celestial Colonnade in your Tatiova deck.
Yeah.
Just to animate it, to give it flying.
Deck?
Yeah, Tuvasa, whatever it is, same thing. To give it flying and vigilance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that most of the cards that we're saying playable are playable in an Enchantress deck?
A lot of them are going to be.
Like dedicated enchantment in your green deck. Like I don't play that many enchantments in mine, so this would be like I'm going to pay 4 to turn my land into like a 3/3.
Right, yeah.
Like the top half of the card is bonkers, but that secondary ability, I don't know, in my decks they don't
secondary abilities.
They don't excite me that much.
No, I agree. Secondary ability is pretty outside of Enchantress decks. But again, I think the top half, even if maybe you're not playing Enchantress, is it worth 2 mana to make your creatures uncounterable?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
That's not bad.
Especially in mono green.
Yeah.
It'll replace Vexing Shusher. Because
Yeah.
she's bigger, she's easier to cast, and she has another thing that she can do.
Yep. I mean, the one downside would probably be it's an enchantment creature, so it's vulnerable to more removal. But, I mean, it's not like people are hard-pressed for creature removal as is.
Yeah.
So, all right, Brando, what's next here for us?
All right, we got a Devourer of Memory. It is a 2/1 nightmare for blue-black. Whenever one or more cards are put into your graveyard from your library, Devourer of Memory gets +1/+1 until end of turn and can't be blocked. It also has blue-black 1. Put the top card of your library into your graveyard. Now, I was super high on this card when I came in to record this with you guys, and then before the show we were talking, and it turns out it doesn't work the way that I thought it does, because it doesn't count the number of cards that go into your graveyard, just when cards go there. So if you traumatize yourself, it doesn't get giant and just make you win. So I'm way less high on this card now.
Yeah, the fact that it gives a thing unblockable isn't nothing. I think, Chris, what did you mention when we were talking?
Lazav.
Yeah.
The ninjutsu gal Yuriko or whatever.
Yep.
Just stuff like that you can get through. And then for Lazav, you just want to pitch cards in your graveyard anyway, so it's another outlet to do it.
Yeah, I think Lazav is probably the real home for this.
For sure.
But it's I think this is a theme we're going to be revisiting with a lot of these cards where they are really good in a specific deck and maybe not generally good in a bunch of decks.
Yeah, I mean, this card doesn't even have like a big butt, so it doesn't really go into like the god that mills.
Phoenix.
That is Phoenix. It didn't sound right in my head.
Yeah. But in the Lazav deck, that's super useful.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to be having that kind of conversation here as we go. Max, what's next?
Next is Dream Trawler. It is a Sphinx. It's a 3/5 Sphinx for 2 white, blue. It has flying and lifelink, and whenever you draw a card, Dream Trawler gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Whenever Dream Trawler attacks, you draw a card, and then you can also discard a card, and Dream Trawler gains hexproof until end of turn, but you tap it.
That's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of more text.
What do you guys think of this card?
Based on what I learned from Zach yesterday, based on the amount of text on this card, I would 100% counter or kill it immediately.
That's usually, when in doubt, that's not a bad rule of thumb.
And the fact that all of the ways it gets bigger is by drawing cards, I agree with that assessment.
That's not a bad way to do it, yeah.
So it's a 4/5 attacking you.
It would be a 5/5, assuming it's in play, because it draws you a card when it attacks, and you got your draw step draw. So most of the time, unless you give it haste, it'll miss the initial draw on your draw step. But if it doesn't, draw on your draw step, draw when it attacks, so it's a 5/5. Assuming you do no other weird draws during your main phase, Brainstorm makes it an 8/5. That's the mana requirements here are where the problem is. Double white, double blue. I'll run it in Sphinxes because I'm used to my creatures all having 6 colorless pips in their casting cost.
And you're also used to tapping out most of the time in that deck too.
Like it's going to replace something else with a stupid casting cost, so it's fine there.
A part of me thinks with how this is the double pips, this was like a rejected return to Ravnica card that got rejected. So like, we can just put it in Theros because there's Sphinxes there.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to be the new Aspirant or whatever.
Well, maybe could have been, or just some Sphinx in the guild or something. Especially, it's especially weird because we don't get a Madomi card in Theros, even though he's referenced on a couple different pieces of flavor text, and it seems odd that they would put a Sphinx in the set and have it not be Madomi in the same colors. So I agree. I wonder if they had a hole to fill, and they're like, well, we weren't going to print Madomi, or they made Madomi into this or something. Who knows? Because they didn't want another legend. I don't know, but I'll play it in my Sphinx deck, and it'll kill somebody because I'll give it double strike and draw a bunch of cards, and it'll come crashing in because I drew a bunch in the first main phase, and it'll swing for 9 or something. I'll run it.
Ugh.
There's a couple of, I've seen like Jeskai Flyer decks that might want it. There's probably a few control shells that might build with it. Is it any interest to you, Brando? You have a deck that would play something like that?
Short answer is no, but the long answer is I can definitely see seeing draw cards, say 6 of them, as in your example, and then swinging in for 9, gaining 9, and doing 9 to somebody else being pretty good. I can see why people would play this card.
All right, Chris, you're up.
Well, the next one we have is Dreamshaper Shaman. It is a 5/4 Minotaur Shaman monstrosity creature. No, they don't have all that text on there. But this card does cost 6 mana. It's also an enchantment creature, which could be relevant, seeing how we're in the Theros and all the wonderful removal out there. But so now this creature's got the text of, at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 2 colorless and a red and sacrifice a non-land permanent. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order.
Chaos.
This card makes me rock. I kid you not.
I love it too.
Everything about this card is why I play Magic. It just does crazy stuff that could be good, it could be bad, and I don't even care. And I think that's Neheb's Spear, so maybe that's something cool too. But the fact is, this card is not bonkers powerful, but it's bonkers fun, and that's why we play Magic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the option of sacking something off in the late game. Let's say, you know, you're on turn like 15 or whatever, and you have like 10 mana rocks out. Well, that's, you know, not logical that's going to happen, but allows you to sack off a mana rock to go for something else.
Right. Something you don't need and get something.
Yes.
And there's, the only downside is 3 mana.
Yeah, and you're going to miss all the lands, so if you know your deck list well, you know that it's going to hit, you know, one of X amount of things that could be really good at this situation.
6 mana is a lot, but there's also a lot of those, like, Atla Palani kind of decks, or decks that are, like, basically eggs or polymorph decks, where their goal is to polymorph a small thing into a big thing.
Yep.
And this is probably one more piece in that kind of deck, where you're going to crack that egg, get a bonus from Atla Palani by doing so, and hopefully flip over into another, you know, big Eldrazi beater or big dinosaur or something. So
I think it's just another key that will help mono red decks become more viable to be played.
It's a form of card advantage in mono red as well.
Yeah, because then you're not stuck into, you know, the typical shelf. Everyone's like, oh, I want to build Krenko, or oh, I want to build like Perforos or other stuff like that. It's like, well, I could play cards like this that are going to be like, oh, cool, I can do more in a red shell.
And you better believe this thing's going to show up in Norin the Wary. I'm just saying.
Great spot for it. All right, next up here we have Dryad of the Elysian Grove.
I don't even know why we're talking about this card. If you follow anything EDH and you don't know about this card, oof, you can follow me on Twitter at @YSquishy1 and we'll have a chat about this.
It's 2 and a green for a legendary creature, Naked Nymph.
Enchantment creature.
Enchantment creature, sorry, not a legendary creature. Enchantment creature, Naked Nymph. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and the lands you control have every basic land type in addition to their other types. It's also a 2/4 because that was necessary on this. Hey, you know what? It's another ridiculous green card in Theros.
Remember that time like 2 minutes ago I said that the card made me rock? Well, that nothing has changed in between. And, and that's just based on the art. I haven't even read it yet. And once you've read the card, like, this thing is nuts. And it's a great replacement for a card that comes out of the Lorwyn block that's way too expensive.
That nymph has spent a lot of time at the gym.
Oh yeah.
He's done his reps. He watches his carb intake.
I bet he does keto.
Yeah, I bet. You can tell.
So I know we're not ones to talk about finance or anything on this podcast, but this is something I want to bring up about this card. Due to the fact that Exploration, Prismatic Omen are both really expensive cards, this stapled into one, this is definitely a card I would be watching hard.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be super expensive because there's so much competition. There's like so many things in the set that are going to be in demand, I think. But I think it might hurt the value or at least knock the value down of some other things. Because this gives you another option. You know, it gives you a replacement for Prismatic Omen in your deck or for Chromatic Lantern. Gives you an Exploration, another option to put in there. So
I definitely run all three if I needed them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Wayward Swordtooth was cheap for a long time and then went up. I imagine this will probably do the same thing.
Yeah, I could see this being relatively friendly to your budget right now, and in 4 years when you're trying to find one for a deck and you're like, how did that Dryad turn into a $16 card?
Yep.
I think this will always, well, it is pre-ordering for $16 right now, but it's pre-ordering, whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is going to be a standard all-star because it fixes all the slow
color
mana.
fixing's a big deal.
Especially once all the Shocklands rotate out next year.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I've got at least one deck that wants it, and this is a card that we mentioned cards being niche. This is not a niche card.
No.
This could show up in any deck at any time.
This card is rad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brando, what's next for us here?
Next card, The card doesn't make me super excited, but this creature type does. So let's just get into it. It is a Gravebreaker Lamia, which is a 4/4 snake Lamia, which doesn't make any sense. For black 4, it has lifelink. When it comes into play, you search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle your library, and spells you cast from your graveyard cost 1 less. This is cool.
Yeah, a snake Lamia is kind of like being like a crayfish lobster a little bit.
Yeah, like it doesn't make sense. Like a Lamia is a snake with a lady's head, and then a snake is a snake. So why it gotta be both?
It's a little redundant, but it's a pretty sweet card.
At least it's
Because
not an
there's
effing
not
Naga.
enough Lamias out there to do Lamia Tribal yet.
Maybe. There we go. Now it can go in your snake deck as well.
Correct.
Lifelink kind of 4/4 is always pretty useful, but the ability to entomb something, that's really, really solid.
Well, this card for sure was put into this set specifically for the Unearth ability or whatever they have in this. I don't remember the name of it, Return or whatever.
Escape.
Escape. Sorry, we're all awful.
We're horrible.
Third try's a charm, man.
The way I looked at it, though, is that there was another ability called Eternalize that was out in Amonkhet, and you have your flashback cards.
Yeah.
And this just kind of fuels all of those strategies in one.
What was the one in Ravnica that we just had? The
Undergrowth.
Undergrowth, as well as the Izzet Jumpstart ability.
Yep. I mean, it fuels all of that to just make things cheaper. So, and you know me, I like playing cards out of my graveyard if I can, because I like using all aspects of the game.
I mean, most people playing black decks tend to do that as well. So it makes your reanimate cheaper. It makes any of those kind of things cheaper, and it sets it up by putting that by entombing a thing in the first place.
Yep.
I don't have a deck for this currently. Do either of you guys have a plan for it?
I don't play this type of strategy.
But I'll see it.
Yeah.
You'll see it get played.
It really makes me want to play like a Mardu straight up, just like return everything from my graveyard.
Well, I did see a comment from somebody like, why couldn't this have been a zombie Lamia? And I'm like, because you'll just go get Gravecrawler every single time. All right, Max, you're up.
The next one is Nadir Kraken. It is a 2/3 Kraken for 1 blue.
Tiny Kraken.
Tiny Kraken.
Just a baby.
But I guess he's going to get bigger because whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Nadir Kraken and create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token.
Come on,
New
guys.
creature type.
You guys are
Tentacle.
excited, right? Right?
I'm
Yes.
excited. I like this
Yeah.
card. I like this card a lot.
Yeah, you do.
I
This
love
card
the
is
art.
I
awesome.
just like the card. I think it's just a fun, perfect design. It's a great commander card. It does a stupid thing. It makes a fun creature type. It's got great art. I don't have a place for it, and I just like the card a lot. It's just fun.
Earlier on in the show, I talked about that Brutaclad deck that just has all those good red and blue things.
Yeah,
Straight in there.
There you go.
I mean, it works with
You bet.
Brutaclad straight up, but like, I just want to play this card. I want to put this card in a sleeve, and I want to see it in my hand, and then I want to put it on the table because it's fun.
And it's a useful card in general that you probably wouldn't feel bad playing in most decks. But also, there's people that are really into like the Sea Monster tribal builds, and this goes in there. And if you're playing a +1 counters kind of deck, it goes in there. And if you're playing a token kind of deck or like Brutaclad where you're going to be doing things with your tokens, it can go in there. There's just like a lot of homes for this kind of card.
Well, I like this card too, because if you think hard about it, you play it. Let's say you play it on turn 3 for a 2/3. Turn 4, you draw a card, pay 1, create a token. Play a draw spell, pay the extra 1, draw, create another token. Don't ever advance the board state at all. Just keep filling up your hand and doing stuff, not ever having to put anything into play. And this will just take over the board for you.
And you, right. Well, there you go. You continue, you build your board state via this while still maintaining a handful of cards. So if somebody board wipes or whatever, you then have the resources to rebuild without having to, you could overextend, but this is a good card to build a board state without having to use your own resources.
Oh my God, I like it even more now.
All right, Chris, I think you're next.
So let's see if I can butcher this one. The Naiad. No, it's a Naiad.
It's a Naiad, yes.
Of Hidden Coves. 2 colorless and a blue for an enchantment creature nymph that is a 2/3. As long as it's not your turn. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
I think this is the only common creature we're talking about here.
It is. Talk about a control powerhouse.
Yeah, F this Baral garbage, man. F this.
Yes. I mean, I think every Baral player wants to run this. We have a Farah deck in the shop we play against it's not really even a control deck. It's just built around casting things on other people's turns to get the extra advantage off of Farah. So there's a lot of flash. There's a lot of things that make tokens at instant speed, whatever. This is just a kind of a mana rock in that deck. But it's a good mana rock for 3 mana, and it's going to probably be saving you pretty frequently, multiple mana every trip around the board.
I just want to see who lives the dream of having Baby Teferi out and upticks them and goes, haha, sorceries for cheap.
All right, back to me. Next, we have the Nessian Boar. 3 green for a creature boar. It's a 10/6.
Love it.
5 mana for a 10/6. That's pretty decent.
Sounds amazing. Stop reading and this card will stay good.
Right, we're good to go. If that was vanilla, that'd be fantastic. All creatures able to block Nessian Boar must do so. So, okay, that's seems like a way to... It makes it difficult to poke through for damage, but it's going to get everything else through, and it's going to wreak havoc. However, it also says whenever Nessian Boar becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller draws a card. So there is some downside there. I don't know. I think, again, we mentioned limited bombs. This is a bomb unlimited where you don't care if they draw a couple of cards because you're planning on getting through with lethal by the time you cast this.
Yep, and it's destroying their board state.
Yeah.
This one I'm not quite sure on. Even giving it trample's probably not going to do a whole lot. Now, if you have a way to give it death touch or something stupid, you can just pretty much wipe an entire...
Or first strike,
yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, the act of blocking alone lets them draw a card, but it's an interesting design that I don't know if I have any place for, but I wanted to talk about it because it's such a kind of an oddball card.
I just want to see someone Rogue's Passage it, and they're like, oh, I have to block everything. Like, no, sucker!
I wonder if, would this be scary to you if it came down across the table from you? Like, I'm going to lose some creatures on my board,
but I'm going
to draw some cards. Like, in EDH, is that...
Depends on your board state. If you've got a bunch of, real, techie kind of creatures that are doing things, I don't want to see it. But, if you're playing a go-wide token deck...
Right.
You're like, yeah, man, I'm swinging at you next turn for sure.
Ooh. Yeah, that works. Okay.
So, it's an odd card. I don't know if it's any good. I don't know if it'll see much play.
It kind of reminds me of that worm that came out in, what was that?
Grothama.
Yeah.
Only not quite as good.
Grothama's a really neat commander. All right, Brando.
I was really hoping you guys were going to have something you guys had broken this one, because reading it, I was like, I hope we don't touch that card, because I have no idea what the hell you're supposed to do with it.
I could probably figure out a way to break it if I really tried.
I did a little bit of looking. I couldn't find any real solutions. People were trying to figure it out, and no one really had any good ideas.
If you put it in a Silenzia deck, you could pair it with Spirit of the Labyrinth, so they only get to draw 1 card.
Yeah, I guess, sure.
Do you Rishkar, or is it Rishkar's expertise it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you expertise it so you can draw 10 and then just block?
I'd be fine dropping this and immediately Greater Gooding it.
Yeah.
Or Momentous Fall,
There
or
you
Life's
go.
Legacy or something. The second
that might be the upside to it. Is
Yeah.
such a cheap mana cost for a 10/6 that just sits there, but you get so much incremental value as long as you don't attack with it.
If you're playing one of those Crash decks with a ton of sack outlets, you just drop this and put 10 counters on Crash.
Yeah, most people are going to look at it and be like, okay, so he's got 6 toughness. I can attack with my 6/6, but he's just going to nuke me out.
Yeah. All right, Brando, jumping to you here. What do we got?
All right, we got a Aiand Wanderer. It is a 1/3 for 1 and a green. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a land from among them, put that card into your hand, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Utility guy. I think he's pretty good.
For an uncommon for 2 mana, that seems really solid. And again, in an Enchantress deck, I think you want to have multiple enchantments in your deck that you're consistently casting 1 each turn. So again, I think the home is an Enchantress deck, but I think that's really solid. Filtering down through, getting a few lands to hand. The question, I guess, becomes in a deck like that where you tend to draw a lot of cards at Enchantress, do you care about drawing a few lands? This is the kind of card I wonder if 5 years ago this was great in an Enchantress deck, and since then we've gotten that Satyr Enchantress guy, and we've gotten the one from the first Theros set, which I guess is 6 years ago-ish now, but we've gotten enough other things in Enchantress that maybe makes this not as good as it would have been once upon a time.
I think what hurts it is it doesn't do anything by itself. It on its own is a 1/3 for 2,
right.
And you have to play something else to have it do anything, which It always hurts cards
Yes.
like this.
Although the fact that it only costs 2 mana gives you some freedom on turn 5 to play it and then play an enchantment or two.
Sure.
But I think the biggest problem here is I think it's not that it's not a good card. I think it's maybe not a good enough card.
Well, I'm wondering because all these constellation cards I've been looking at, none of them are actually enchantment creatures.
This one is that hurts this one for sure too.
Yeah.
Because in the previous set, a lot of constellation were built into an enchantment creature, so it says whenever this or another enchantment enters, because this is identical like a Satyr Wayfinder, if it had that ability tacked on.
Right. All right, Maximilian.
We have Nightmare Shepherd. It's a 4/4 demon for 2 black. It has flying, and it says, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1. It's 1/1, and it's a nightmare in addition to its other types.
The flavor's super rad on this
Yeah.
one.
Right.
I'm just going to come out and say this. I don't know if many people know this about me, but I really don't like aristocrats as a strategy. I don't like playing it. I don't like playing against it. And when it gets new tools like this,
You don't like that either?
I don't like that either. It's a cool card, but no.
What I want to
No.
see this card do. I want to see someone have their general out with this. Put their general in the graveyard, exile it with the trigger back to the command zone, and then create a copy of it that's a 1/1.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Is I think if your commander has an ETB ability, this winds up being a Conjurer's Closet on a dude. If you're because Gonti decks just want to sacrifice Gonti every turn anyway to recast him. This just gives you one more way to sneak an extra Gonti trigger out every time you do that.
Or if you have just a deck that's built for like ETB effects in general, the ability to just copy those ETB effects. Like if this wasn't an exile effect with it, I would definitely be considering in my Lesha deck. I still am. Just the ability to use them twice and not have to really worry about using the graveyard.
Well, stuff like Teysa Karlov, who cares about death triggers. This lets you kill your thing. And because it's not a replacement effect either, the way it's worded, whenever a creature dies, you may exile it. So it dies, you get the death trigger out Teysa Karlov, then you exile it, and make the token, which then you can do the death trigger with again. Now the problem there is Teysa decks tend to run reanimation. They have ways to bring those creatures back, but it does give you a failover if you don't have enough reanimation effects. It lets you get some good value out of those creatures a second time around.
So what about that black-white wizard, Alendra or whatever, that requires her to go to the graveyard to shoot or whatever she does?
Mm-hmm.
So then it just gives you an option to, well, now I can just put her in the graveyard because I have this trigger to go off, and then she's going to go back command zone anyways.
Right, yes. Yeah, it's a good card. It's a really good card. I mean, again, a 4-mana 4/4 with flying is pretty solid too, in addition to having good abilities. So that's a good card.
Gray Merchant. Oh my god, I see things going broken right now.
Yeah, I mean, double your Gray Merchant trigger? Sure. All right, Chris.
The next one we have is Nyx Herald. 2 colorless and a green for an enchantment creature, Centaur Shaman, who is a 2/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target enchanted creature or enchantment creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. Thoughts? Discussion. Go.
Again, I think this is one of those not quite good enough. I think the problem here isn't that it's not good. It's that in a deck that wants to run this, you tend to have Rancor, you tend to have Unflinching Courage, you tend to have Armadillo Cloak, probably the first Nylea.
Yeah.
And trample effects don't stack. If you have 2 out, it doesn't do you any good. So you only want so many of those effects out. And do you want to run this over Rancor or Nylea or Armadillo Cloak? I don't think so.
No. The fact that it's just +1/+1, it's not a counter, and everything like that is till end of turn.
Right.
It's kind of a big letdown. Like if it was a +1/+1 counter and gains trample until end of turn, I think it's a little better. But the fact that it's only a one-time thing for the turn is just kind of a huge letdown in my opinion.
Yeah.
Amazing card in other formats because it is a 3/4 with trample for 3 mana when you go to attack.
Yeah, it's close to being good enough in Commander, but I think there's too much competition. Like in Limited, when you've got a fistful of enchantments because you're drafting a bunch of Theros stuff, it'll be a monster. All right, what's next?
I feel like you guys liked this card and then kind of like
Talked ourselves out of it.
apologetically said that. So I'm just going to come out and say it. This card isn't good enough.
Yep.
And it's a bad
All right.
card.
we tiptoed around it maybe too much, but I don't think you're wrong. I think you're right.
Brando, I know you're new here. It's trash card. We say
Right.
trash
There we
card
go.
here.
Right.
I'm changing it to garbage now.
All right. I think this is back to me.
Yeah,
No.
don't read this word for word for your notes. How about that, buddy?
All I have is a series of swear words in my notes for this card. Nyx Bloom Ancient, 4 and 3 green, 7 mana for a enchantment creature elemental. For that amount of mana, this must certainly do something good.
Eh.
It has trample and it's a disappointing 5/5. So, what is this last bit of text? Well, you certainly know because the internet's been terrified of this card for the last 3 or 4 days. If you tap a permanent, not land, permanent, 4 mana, it produces not 2, but 3 times as much of that mana instead.
I'm going to tap my Thrian Dynamo for 9 mana.
What a
Soul Ring for 6,
just
Cabal
a
Coffers
dumb,
for a
dumb
million.
card. Gaia's
You
Cradle.
guys ready for the scalding hot take of all scalding hot
Drop
takes?
it on us.
You guys ready for this? You know how we have Bob, and we have Gary,
Yep.
and we have whatever they call the Sakura Tribe Elder. You know
Steve.
that? This is Timmy. That's what this card is going to be known as in 2 years. Because everybody's just so pumped for it. Oh my God, this is so good. Like, really? Like, does everybody play the giant Genesis wave now? People make fun of me for doing that. You're playing mono green. Are you gonna cast the 2 cards that are left in your hand? Are you gonna combo out and win? Because I've already done that 5 turns ago because I had to play 7 for my engine. This thing is strictly medium.
I think it's maybe better than that, but I don't think it's the end of the world, and I think people who are already talking about a ban are insane.
Absolutely, they are. Like, this card isn't gonna blow up the format.
It's
not gonna
one more mana
revolutionize
than that
anything.
6 mana enchantment that doubles your mana anyways.
Then Mana Reflection.
Yeah.
I would rather see the person across the table from me drop this when I can immediately Swords of Plowshares it than I would have them drop Vorinclex where I have to immediately Swords of Plowshares it and then can untap that land. Or worse, the only removal I have in hand costs 4 mana and I have to blow that immediately and can untap those 4 lands next turn.
No, we actually discussed this in my team chat. They were like, oh yeah, so if you do this with Nissa Who Shakes the World or whatever, that doubles your lands
Doesn't
or whatever.
work.
Well, it adds 1 additional green. That's what the ruling we got for it was. And they're like, oh yeah, that's so bonkers, so bonkers. And then one guy comes walking in, usually the smart aleck of the group and all that, and he's like, well, if I play this on turn 7, I'd already better be winning the game. He's like, otherwise this card's worthless.
Yep.
Well, and if you, people talking about like Rider Application, if you Rider Application on it, you can tap a land for, 700,000 mana each. Like, man, if you cast Rider Application on a 7-drop, you probably are winning the game. That's just how that tends to work. If you've got enough mana to cast Rider Replication, and you've already let this come into play long enough to sit there and you to have that 10 mana for Rider Replication, of course you're going to do something stupid.
Yeah, my personal notes on this card was I went very into depth on the rules committee and what I thought about cards like this, where I think that if they keep printing cards like this, they need to bring mana burn back. For those of you who have not played back in the day, if you did not use all your mana that's in your mana pool, you take damage equal to what you have left. So then it turns into a math game of how much I can tap instead of just going, oh, I float, 20 mana. Oh, I only spent 10 of it. Oops, pass the turn.
Well, and you can, yes, entomb this and reanimate it, early in the game. Again, I could name 50 cards I would like to see entombed and reanimated less than this. Like, if this is what you're going to do on turn 3, I can deal with that. Whereas if you entomb that Elish Norn,
Master of Cruelties.
or right, like there's a bunch of things someone can entomb that are way meaner than this.
Yes.
It's a strong card. I will absolutely at some point get blown out by it, and whatever. There's cards like that in the game.
This card is the spirit of Commander. It
Kind
costs
of,
a lot
sure.
of mana. You can do fun stuff with it.
And there's going to be people at kitchen tables all over the world playing this and just laughing their butts off, and that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the card that you open in your pack and you get super excited, and you should because it's a cool card, but it's not this game-breaking powerhouse that people think it is. It's not Oko. In fact, if somebody has an Oko, it's an elk.
Right, exactly. There you go.
So
Good
there
call.
we go.
All right, Brando, what's next?
All right, up next we have the Ox of Agonis. Is that how I say that?
Good enough.
It's a 4/2 for red, 3. When it enters the battlefield, you chuck your hand and draw 3 cards, and it has escape red, plus exile 8 other cards in your graveyard. I don't think we've talked about escape yet, so I'm going to do it. You can cast these cards from your graveyard if you exile the specified number of cards and pay the mana cost. So it's kind of like Delve, but a little different. Also, Ox of Agonis escapes with a +1/+1 counter on it. Ooh.
So when it enters the battlefield, you immediately fuel your next escape by discarding your hand and drawing 3 cards. Although ideally you want to discard, 0 or 1 or 2. You want to be casting this when you're already
at 5 mana. You're probably down anyways.
In red, a lot of times, especially, you're already probably getting pretty close to that point. Ideally, so it's a way to refill your hand. You can refill your hand later on then by escaping it when you need to. It's got a pretty decent, 4/2. It's not nothing. I'm actually kind of surprised it isn't a little bit bigger.
Well, Bedlam Reveler was 8 mana 3/5, I think it was, with Prowess. That reduced the cost by each instant sorcery you had in your card or in your graveyard. That did the same exact thing. You pitch your hand and draw 3 cards. So it's kind of like the reversal of it. It's got a bigger power than toughness type of deal.
Yeah. This is definitely being talked about for like Modern, Dredge, and Legacy because it just fuels everything.
It's a good card, and I'm loving this because this is now Bedlam Reveler, Seasoned Pyromancer. They all do similar things where they allow you to pitch cards to get more cards in your hand, but they're built into like another creature base, or they do something else as well.
Commander, probably a little bit less of a commander card. We'll see. I'm sure we'll see it somewhere, but I think it's probably less.
I'd play it mono red. I wouldn't even
mono
hesitate.
red will make sense, yeah.
Or Boros.
Yeah.
All right, Max.
The next one is Rika Spawn. It's a 3/4 Gorgon for 3 and a black. It has escape for 5 and a black, and you have to exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. Rika Spawn escapes with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and when it enters the battlefield this way, each opponent sacrifices a non-Gorgon creature.
There's somebody out there with a Gorgon tribal deck who's super excited, and nobody else probably cares.
Because there are now 4 Gorgons.
Right. There's closer to 20 almost at this point, I think, now, because Ravnica's had a couple. There's quite a few old ones going back all the way to Infernal Medusa, I think, in Legends as a Gorgon.
17,
okay. So, there's enough someone can do it if you're really persistent.
With some changelings, you can do it.
The one?
You can play Chameleon Colossus, the best of all Gorgons.
Damia is a Gorgon.
Isn't there that one from the original Theros where all your creatures get Death Touch, or wasn't that a Gorgon too?
It destroys all, or tap to destroy target non-Gorgon creature or something.
The one Chris was talking about, that's the black archetype that gives all your stuff Death Touch and your opponents lose it. And then Hythonia the Cruel is the commander from the original Theros that has Death Touch and has Monstrosity 3 for 8 mana, and then when you do Monstrous it destroys all non-Gorgon creatures.
Okay.
And then Damia, Sage of Stone, is the other notable Gorgon.
Which that deck's already built to do something completely different.
Right.
So, all right, up next.
We have Reverent Hoplite. This is a human soldier, 1/2 for 5 mana. Yes, I said that right. It is a 1/2 for 5 mana, 4 colorless and a white. When Reverent Hoplite enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens equal to your devotion to white. Now, for those of you who don't know, devotion counts, when a devotion card comes in, counts the number of pips of that color you have on all cards that you control on the battlefield.
So this comes into play and it makes 1 token, at the very least, based on itself.
Yep.
For 5 mana.
5 mana. But if you're playing like a white weenie token deck, they tend to have, you're going to have a lot of white pips out there. This could have very easily come into play and drop 8 tokens.
If not more.
Right.
This is a slightly worse Evangel of Heliod from the original Theros set.
Yes.
It did the exact same thing for 6 mana, 4 in white, and it had a bigger, but it was a 1/3.
That card killed me in multiple different Theros drafts and pre-constructed stuff, because that was really tough to deal with when someone would drop that and already have 2 or 3 pips in play that make 5 tokens. But I think this is if I was playing like some kind of a mono white soldier deck, this might make the cut, I think.
Yeah, I think anything mono white. Even if you're not themed, but you're on mono white, you look at your pips and see like, okay, so I'm playing a bunch of cards that have double white pips.
Yeah.
You know, even if there's 2 of those cards out and this comes out that gives me 5 tokens for 5 mana, I'd be like, that I'm game. That would work perfect.
6 for 5.
You gotta have more soldiers in your mono. Your mono white soldier deck that attacks every turn. Sorry.
I do find it interesting that this card actually specifies human for the tokens.
Yes.
The older Theros sets, they were just soldiers.
Which can be relevant, I guess, in
can
some
be
situations.
relevant.
It matters with like
Thalia's Lieutenant.
the second Sigarda.
Yeah.
Serpent of Yawning Depths is a 4 double blue enchantment creature serpent. Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, and serpents you control can't be blocked except by Kraken, Leviathan, octopuses, and octopi, octopodes. I think it's octopodes and serpents. It's a 6/6, and people that are playing Sea Creature Tribal are really excited, just like the Medusa ones were earlier, and that's
I
probably
really
it.
want to build Sea Creature Tribal. Like, I've looked at it before, but it doesn't look like it's going to work the way I want it to.
Hey, Brando, do you have a sea monster deck that you guys have talked
Like
about
multiple
before?
times. Sea Monster Zur, baby. And this would go in there.
Did you just say
I
Zur?
sure did. We play Sea Monster Zur because it's the only way to play Zur and have it be fair, and even then, he's not fair.
I tried that with what's her face? That
Bruna.
no, the Jeskai gal, Narset.
Narset.
And I'm like, this is just Narset equipment, and everyone's like, okay. And I show them the deck, like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. We start playing, and they're just all like, oh,
Kill
attack
Narset.
you, attack you, attack you. I'm like, come on,
Don't play
guys.
Narset, Max Crandell. They know you too well.
That was not me.
Oh, wait, what?
That was Chris.
Oh,
that was
I'm
Chris
sorry.
that
that
was
was
guilty of
Chris.
Wait. Well, you just said you're a scumbag just like Max Crandell. That's probably why I confused you.
that. There we go. There.
That's fair.
All right, Brando, next to you.
We've got a Setessan champion. We've been talking about enchantresses, and here is our enchantress. It is a 1/3 human warrior for green 2, Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and you draw a card. It goes in every enchantment deck, or every enchantress deck.
So, yeah. Like everyone, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
It just does. And it goes nowhere else, probably, too.
Yeah, I can't see it going anywhere else. This one I'm pumped for Pioneer, because I've seen a lot of people brewing to try to make boggles
Like
into
a Pioneer Boggles.
and this gives them another option to do this because it just gets bigger as you're casting
Sure.
those enchantments.
Pioneer Boggles.
Ornithopter's legal.
There we go.
There's lots of things that are legal.
Nice.
I do believe the one elf is legal too that they actually play
Yes,
in
the
boggles.
one from Ravnica, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget which one it is, but yes, it is. All right. Maximilian. I don't know why I keep saying it like that,
That's
but
fine. Stinging Lionfish. It's a 2/1 for 1 and a blue enchantment creature fish. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, you may tap or untap target non-land permanent.
so I saw this. My first thought was, I guarantee there's a combo with that, and I'm not even going to try to figure out what it is, but there's no situation where like casting a thing to untap a thing doesn't somehow result in an infinite combo.
Well, it only happens once.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's only the first spell of the turn. That's true.
Yeah,
on
like
your
it's,
opponent's turn.
On opponent's turn. That's true.
like there are some pretty broken things here. Maybe not that we have to talk about, but I mean, I think that they've kind of keyed into some of the stuff that breaks cards, like on this uncommon, and they made a broken uncommon. I think it's okay.
Well, they also have gotten good about being like, this card is potentially really good, so let's make sure we don't make it a tribe people care about. So let's make it a fish, or let's make it an ox, or an elk, or a whatever. So they seem to have, you can tell when they're slightly worried about a card too, because it has an oddball creature type.
I never noticed that before. I like that.
So yeah, that kind of minimizes the damage it can do here too. So, all right, Christopher.
I was just thinking of something. I was thinking of like Helm of Possession or something like this. So you cast your spell on someone else's turn, untap your Helm of Possession
Take control of a creature.
to give something back. Then you yank their creature away from them so they can't smack you with it. Next person's turn, you cast them.
Same
Oh, you
thing.
can have this back.
Sure.
I'll take that one from you
Sure.
instead.
Good
Aha,
every
I knew there
turn.
was a way of doing something stupid with it.
Broken. We broke it wide open, boys.
Okay, so onward to the next one. We have Storm Herald. 2 colorless and a red for Human Shaman. That is a 3/2 body. This wonderful Human Shaman is haste. And when Storm Herald enters the battlefield, return any number of aura cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to any creatures you control. Interesting. Exile those auras at the beginning of the next end step. If those auras would leave the battlefield at any point before they get exiled by the effect, you exile them otherwise.
There's almost nothing in this set that cares about enchantments really in red for the most part. I'm telling you right now.
I love your notes
if
on
I
this.
was making a bet, somebody on the design team had an Earl the Miststalker deck, and they're like, I can't top deck my replenish consistently enough. I need one more option. And they're like, we can't put it in green and white. We have too much stuff. Like, make it red. It's Earl. I don't care. And they're like, all right, fine, whatever, Jim. Stop hectoring us about it. You can have your card for your Earl deck.
Is this the meme of the arc even? Where like this is the card that should have been white?
Probably. Although that list is pretty long, I think, this set. I'm like, every day when the new random green card is spoiled, I see someone be like, why is that not white?
I don't trust those people anymore because I was like, you guys just want all the good cards. You white players. You had white cards and good cards for a long time. Let the rest of us have a turn.
Let green have all of them now?
Yes, I play green, so keep them coming. Keep them coming.
It reminds me of a meme that a guy posted up in our team chat of it shows the Ninja Turtles with whatever the rat dude, and he's got the blue mana symbol, and they're all little. And then it shows the next one, and they're all grown up, and every single one of them except for one, which is white, is still a baby. It's like, yeah, white didn't get nothing over the past 20, 30 years. They're just still little babies.
The one I saw was a sorcery called, I think it was called Not Harmonize. And it had vigilance on a sorcery, and it just said, don't draw 4 cards. All right, back to me. We're going to talk about the Terror of Mount Valus. It is flying and double strike for a dragon. It's a 5/5. When Terror of Mount Valus enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain double strike until the end of turn. 7 mana is a lot.
It's a dragon, though.
But it's a dragon. It's a dragon with double strike, which is pretty relevant. There's not a ton of creatures with double strike and evasion.
So I know why he's a terror. Because I'm looking at this art, and I bet you it's an annoyance with all these spikes coming out of like the bottom of his jaw and everything to do anything.
He's just mad all the time because he
can't like lay down or anything. He just moves and he like breaks something.
He ruins a pillow every night and has to go buy a new one.
I literally just got the scene from Waterboy in my head where he's explaining why crocodiles are always so ornery.
They got all damn teeth and no toothbrush.
So yeah, if I was playing a Dragon Tribal deck, I'd be pretty tempted to run it. Just the option to have that, it's 10 damage when it hits.
I would love to drop this in an Ur-Dragon deck.
You bet.
Everybody loses.
Wait, it's another option compared to Atarka.
Yep.
The one that gives your dragons double strike.
I think Atarka, I believe, is the other double strike dragon. I think there's one bad one from way back in the day that was like an 8-drop or something. But
I don't think that would trigger, would it? Because when it turns from the 5-color dragon dude, when you put it in your graveyard, it doesn't actually enter the battlefield. He just transforms into it, correct?
Yeah, if you make it into a copy of it with Scion of the Ur Dragon,
yep.
But it'll still have double strike. So
he would, but you're not going to trigger
damage.
anything else.
Not going to trigger anything else. But if you're playing the Ur Dragon, where you're playing 5-color dragons too, it's probably pretty solid there. Yeah, this is a kind of a Timmy card, I think, but I think it's a
great
card.
red finisher. Lots of people have dragon decks, and they'll play it in there, or just big stuff decks. Even in goblins, if you're playing a really bad goblin deck, this would be fine.
Yep. Well, I think we mentioned it when we did our deck tech last week on Brutaclad.
Yep.
It's a good creature to turn all your Brutaclad tokens into, making a ton of those treasures into double strike dragons that are hitting for 10 with evasion. Ooh. If you've got a bunch of tokens out and you can, reanimate this with Felden or something, however you want to do it, you're probably going to kill the whole table.
You sold me. I'll take 2.
Yes. This is the 4th dragon with double strike.
Okay.
There was one from Scourge.
Okay.
And then there was one from Dissension.
Oh, Rakdos Pit Dragon, right?
Yep.
Okay.
It has Hellbent, where if you're Hellbent, it has double strike.
Okay.
Get there.
All right, Brando.
All right, I love the notes that you put for this card.
Yeah, don't read the notes word for word.
Okay.
This one is also a sweary note.
All right, it's a Thassa's Oracle. It's a 1/3 for a Merfolk Wizard. Nothing like relevant creature types for blue. And it has a a wall of text. I'll try and get through it. When Thassa's Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to one of those cards on top of your library on the rest of the bottom. On the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards left in your deck, you win the game.
Oh,
Wow.
hey, we could do that with the triple mana elemental.
I just made 106 mana. I'm going to scry for 106 and win the game. But again, if you're making that much mana, and
You should win the game.
Well, it's not X
it's-
mana, it's your devotion to blue.
Or I guess, yeah.
Yeah, like it's this is another, what is it? What's the guy's name?
Lab
Maniac. It's another Lab Maniac, and everybody loves Lab Maniac, and now we
Well,
have 3 of them.
And it's kind of like you have to do the thing first. You have to get rid of your library somehow. Presumably, maybe infinitely draw down to it, but like it has to be out. You have to do your thing to empty your library out, and then you have to activate that ability
You have your
or cast it.
what's his stupid name again? Lab
The new
Maniac.
gen-
You have your Lab
yeah.
Maniac in play, and you're comboing off, drawing your whole deck, and they kill your Lab Man. Now you can go, ha 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 ha, got you. Thassa's Oracle, I win.
Right?
It's like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah.
Damn it.
So it's one more piece there. I mean, it's not my jam. I'm not someone who's going to play Lab Man, but
There's been a little bit of discussion how people think this could work in like some Brago decks, but you really have to be heavy blue in Brago, I think,
Yeah.
to get that chain rolling.
Yeah, Max
Like, I
loves
don't
this
think-
card, I can tell.
I don't think this.
I honestly don't, Brando.
Oh, yeah, you do.
No.
No?
I don't think this is going to inspire someone to build a new Lab Man deck if they hadn't already decided to do that with that last Jace.
It'll just be
And
in
if-
there.
And if they already have one, they'll just add this to it and maybe a few pieces. And that deck was already annoying, and it's going to be still annoying. And and you already were either not playing with them because of the deck, or you're fine with it. I don't think it changes
Yeah.
anything.
It's going to go in my mono blue Shulane deck.
I know there's some problem with it. I read it, and now I've mentally discarded the information. There's some slight problem with it in CEDH.
Oh, I bet.
With Flash Hulk, where it gives you an uninteractable line in a way that didn't really exist before. But that's, I mean,
You've
Flash
already
Hulk-
been
Flash
Flash
Hulk's a
Hulk. The
problem
game is
anyway.
over.
Right,
right?
Flash Hulk's a problem anyway. What do we got next here?
We have Tree Shaker Chimera. It is an 8/5 Chimera for 5 green. All creatures able to block the Chimera do so, and when the Chimera dies, draw 3 cards.
So we were talking before when we discussed that boar, trying to get value out of it. This is a pretty good value creature at that point. You're going to kill their board, and you are going to draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
I don't know what, and again, I think Chimera is their new go-to creature type when they also don't want to make something that's going to fit into an
That's the
existing
weirdest chimera
archetype.
I've ever seen, too.
Why
Right.
is the lion so sad?
Yeah, everybody looks so depressed on there. And there's no snake tail,
Right?
and there's no wings. Like, what kind of Chimera is this?
It's a sad Chimera. That's why the lion's upset. He's got
Oh.
no wings and a tail, and he's like, "Oh man."
He's looking for some courage.
and he knows he's just going to die. Like, all I'm going to do is die so someone can harmonize.
They're just
Yeah,
going
I
to cut
think
my
if-
heads off and turn them into cards. This is not
Right.
good.
I think it's maybe in some kind of a reanimator deck. Like, I don't know. It doesn't. It's an interesting card. Again, I don't know where I would run it, but
7 is a lot for this,
7's a big ask.
especially without trample.
Yep.
Like, if this had trample, I'd probably be a little more okay with it.
And sure, yeah, you can like
Crater Hoof it.
play it and sack it to a greater good or whatever, and draw a bunch of cards. But like, there's a bunch of things that do that are maybe more useful. It's fine.
Yeah,
So
nothing wrong
It's
with
a
it.
fun
Yeah.
intro card for new players.
we only have a couple cards left here. I think, Chris, we're back to you.
We are. We have a Wave Break Hippocamp. 2 colorless and a blue for a 2/2 enchantment creature, Horse Fish. Let's just make some weird things all the time. Sure. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, draw a card.
It goes really well with that one that reduces all your
Yes,
spells
it
when you
does.
cast it.
And the fish where you can tap or
Oh,
untap.
all the fish. All
Yeah.
the fish.
Baral and Afara again probably are really into this, and
I do like the
Cast-
cards are.
yeah.
I like that they're coming out with cards like this where they want you to be playing cards on your
Yeah.
opponent's turn, trying to like push you into that. Which, no, a real player just plays cards on your turn and kills your opponent. That's how it works.
I felt bad. New Year's Eve, I streamed with MTG Lexicon, and I had to main phase a Factor Fiction because I missed my land drop for the turn, and I was like debating. I'm like, man, this is embarrassing, but it seems dumber to miss a land drop just because I don't want to main phase a Factor Fiction, so I guess I'm going to do it. And everyone in the stream was like, what? I wanted to get my land drop. It's turn 4. Come on.
Please tell me you won that game, because I would have been like, remember that Factor Fiction? What's up now?
I didn't. I screwed myself. I think I mentioned this on the show, but you weren't here. I got greedy after a big Torment of Hailfire, and I kept my Skull Clamp instead of sacrificing it. So I sacrificed a bunch of other stuff and a bunch of life. I kept my Skull Clamp because I'm like, I might want it next turn. And then top decked Mirrodin Besieged and counted my graveyard and had 14 artifacts. Had I sacrificed the Skull Clamp, I killed the other player.
I'm very glad that card backfired on you. What's up now?
I was so mad at myself after I realized what I did, because it was just me. Because I should have I had nothing to sacrifice to the Skull Clamp anyway. I don't know why I decided to keep it, but I'm like, maybe I'll draw something next turn and I can draw a few cards and make a play. And I top decked that Mirrodin Besiege. I was like, oh no! And I had no way to put the clamp in the graveyard.
Ooh.
So yeah, I got.
It's because you weren't in that game, Chris. That card always works when you play.
Had you been in the game, I would have absolutely had 15 artifacts and I would have killed you. So the last one we have here is Woe Strider. It's a horror. Whenever it's 2 and a black for a creature horror. Whenever Woe Strider enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 white goat creature token. You can sacrifice another creature for no cost. You can just do it to scry 1. And it has escape 3 black, exile 4 other cards from your graveyard, and the Woe Strider escapes with 2 +1/+1 counters on it.
This is good.
Free sack outlets are always good, and it makes you something to sack if you need to.
This is really good. The escape, bringing it in as a 5/3, 5/4.
And again, this is one of those creature types where they're like, let's not make it a zombie, because that's probably what the initial desire is to do. But when you make it a zombie or a vampire, that gets to be a problem, so they make it a horror. Yeah, this is a really good
There's
card.
no zombies on Theros, are there?
What was that?
Are there any zombies on Theros? I don't think there are.
Grey Merchant
is. So there's I think that Timoret, the Murder King, who is a legendary, so we didn't talk about him, he's a zombie, I'm fairly sure as well.
Okay, there's a couple in here.
Yeah.
Then. I don't know. I think this card is really fun. I think it's cool. I agree with everything that you guys are saying. It goes right alongside your altars and your, maybe not your goblin bombardments, but it's good. And it's cool that it's a big beater too, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just a good card.
And you can reuse it after somebody's like, I can't have that free sack outlet out there doing Viscera Seer stuff. I'm going to kill it. And you just bring it back and do it all again. So, yeah, that's a really good card too.
Yep.
I think that's it. I think we've went through, looks like 117 cards we went through there for Creatures of Theros.
Yes.
Oh, and there are many, many more out there. I mean, because each deck has a certain shell that could want this or that or anything. So it's not like we can touch on every single card.
We had to
that's
limit
out
it
there.
to ones we could talk about in an hour. But that's a lot of creatures in Theros that are relevant to somebody probably.
Yep.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see what the rest of the shows wind up having to talk about, because this set's, like I said, I think there's a lot of cards that are good. I just think they're kind of specific here. Are there any final thoughts from you, Brando, before we kind of wrap up?
Absolutely. I promised everybody on Commander Cookout Podcast I was going to challenge you, Dana Roach, to a fight. So this is me.
All right.
Consider it thrown down. I'm going to bring my Max Crandell Puby playmat wrapped with a piece of rebar inside.
Okay.
So that's going to happen at some point.
For sure.
Other than that, I think that these creatures and this set in general, again, I think that the power level swing is pretty heavy. There's lots of really great stuff, but it's really specific in where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
But I think that when the good stuff is good, it's exceptionally good. And I think there's lots of people who look at this set and they get really excited about the cards. And even if maybe I'm not or you guys aren't, that isn't what's important. What is important is that there's a little bit of something in here for everybody that plays Magic. So in that way, I think it's a great set.
Very good take. I kind of agree with that. I think they've generally gotten good at doing that the last few years too, where the sets tend to have a lot of things for a lot of people.
They're going to bomb it when these sets coming up. I know it.
Return to Homelands.
There we go.
Oh, I'll be game.
I would be interested in seeing that just out of curiosity to see how that breaks down. That would be amazing.
Bring us back banding. I want to see all the new players' heads explode.
Homelands, I believe, is on Algrotha, I think, is the plane off the top of my head.
I just want a new Chandler.
Yeah, right. Hey, we're getting a new Baron Sengir in Legends next fall, so Might be some more Homelands throwbacks there. Well, Brando, thanks a lot for joining us for this super cool crossover episode, and we'll make sure we turn in tomorrow, and listeners, you tune in tomorrow too to listen to the CCO episode as they talk about, what was it, Sorceries, Instants, and Planeswalkers?
Yes, sir. It's going to be it is fabulous.
Excellent.
It's the best Magic you're going to listen to all week, except for this show that you've just finished listening to.
Well, if people want to find you online and reach out and say hey and say you did a great job, how would they do that, Brando?
When people want to say that I've done a great job, they can find me at CCO Brando on Twitter, or if you want to get in touch with the show or with Ryan or anybody else, all of our contact details can be found very handily at commandercookout.com.
Excellent. And on a personal level, I do want to say you guys do a great show. It's been great getting to know you and Ryan over these last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Thanks a lot for coming on here, and thanks for being two super cool guys that have become friends of ours now in the Great White North.
We started as enemies, and now we are somewhat friends.
Look at it. We're all drinking buddies now, and that's awesome.
Yep.
And thank you guys so much for having me. I enjoy your guys' show and your content, and more specifically, you guys as well. So thanks for having me.
Looking forward to Vegas this year.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Rafael Garcia. You can find him on Twitter at Ursa Bearwalker. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDR_Max. And you can find Chris at MyFootIsBroke1.
We should totally change our Twitter handle to that.
Or Wise Squishy1, possibly. We'll be back. We won't be back.
We'll be back Monday.
We'll be back Monday with a special guest we lined up when we thought Chris wouldn't be here. Aaron Campbell will be joining us on Monday to talk about EDH. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
I'm Brando.
Hey, Brando. Thanks a lot, man.